The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Beinhacker, and we have another great guest today. It's cool with the show. We've been doing it like 5 years, 300 some, I guess, really meet some cool people, including Matt, who you'll meet in a minute. So if you are listening on your favorite podcast directory, please leave us a 5-star review so people can keep finding the episodes, keep supporting the podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, like us, subscribe to the channel, and, keep being a great listener and a great viewer. So let's get on with today's show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, Matt. So let me get that up there. Thanks for coming on the show. I noticed my shoulders disappearing. Apparently, you shouldn't use a light blue shirt in front of a green screen. So I will remember that for the future. But you have a regular background, right? You're not, you don't have any sort of a green screen, right?
No green screen. We're good. I won't get washed out.
Okay, good. So thanks for coming on the show. I think we met was it through Podmatch or through a Booker?
Yeah, it was Podmatch.
Podmatch. Okay, cool. I get a lot of guests through Podmatch. Why don't we start with your story? I know you have a bit of a road that you traveled on to where you are now, and then we'll get into what you're doing, the consulting, a little bit later on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I love the tagline and what you kind of said about being an accidental entrepreneur, because that's very much my story.
Right.
I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial streak. Started things here and there, side hustles, side projects, but I was working a great job, traveling across North America, doing public speaking, and just a corporate job, but it was a lot of fun. And ended up getting to this horrific car accident. 3 inches from losing my life, hit 2 horses.
My God.
Mitch, I don't know if you know horses. I definitely didn't when I hit them. So
pretty big.
I found out they were Clydesdales after
like
the
Budweiser horses.
Yeah.
Where were you that Clydesdales were in the road?
I was driving home. I was dating a girl. I was driving home from her house on a Monday night.
In what state?
Up back in Canada. Yeah.
Okay,
where I'm originally from.
Okay.
Yeah. So Canadian countryside, and the countryside, houses are spread apart. So these 2 horses jumped out onto the road because the farmer hadn't fixed his fence. He had been told to fix the fence, hadn't fixed it. Two horses jumped out onto the road.
Yeah.
and I couldn't stop. Hit him dead on. Uh, Actually flipped one of them, so they both smashed. One of them flipped over the car,
Oh,
um, and yeah, it just led me down this journey where I was young, dumb, and naive, so I just thought everything would be fine after a few days, and
right.
days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months, and next thing you know, I had to leave my job. I had
Really?
a lot of chronic pain,
Yeah.
a disability that I'm currently, still
Still
navigating even
dealing with.
now. Yeah,
Sure.
12 years later.
Yeah. 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 So how long were you hospitalized for a while, or you got out, but you had a lot of PT, or?
Yeah, so went to the hospital for about 8 hours. They did some tests. They were like, we don't really see anything. You've got a concussion. Go home. Went
Got it.
home
So it
for
wasn't like you were taken in an ambulance unconscious to the hospital. You were like, oh, fine, here's an ice bag. Go home.
listen. This won't play well with my friends and family because they have PTSD over it. But the ambulance came, the fire
Yeah.
truck came, and I declined it. I was like,
Yeah.
no,
That
we're
was
we're
not a good
fine.
move. Right.
We're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Had two large
Terrible.
horses. Yeah. I hate to sound insensitive to you, but how'd the horses do?
They both died instantly.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know what, Mitch? I always say, I'm like, they didn't even let me keep the meat. Like I hit
Yeah.
two
You didn't.
horses.
Seriously.
They didn't let me. They didn't
Uh,
let me take a souvenir.
Sacrifice your whole body and they get nothing out of it. Yeah. Well, I
And
feel bad for the horses, but yeah, at least they didn't have any pain.
and so yeah, I just kind of found myself on this new journey where basically, here I
Yeah.
am. I'm unemployed. I have it in my head that no one's going to hire me, right? Because I was calling in sick near the end. I was missing time. I could be knocked out for 15 minutes. I could be knocked out for 3 weeks. At one point, I found myself, the last few weeks I was working, I was going to the washroom and hiding in the washroom because of the
Was it
pain.
like
And
physical? Oh, so it was physical pain. It wasn't just emotional and mental trauma.
oh,
It was physical.
physical pain,
Yeah.
and I ended up actually developing a condition called severe cluster headaches. So
It's like almost
they would
migraines. Yeah.
exactly right. Like, and I had never had a headache, never had a migraine, didn't know what that was, and so here I am now navigating. What do you do when you're not coherent, right?
Right.
I
So what
can't
was your
see.
job?
So I was traveling across North America doing public speaking, trying to sell scanners to reps
Oh
and
yeah.
large
So the
audiences.
mental anguish got to, your brain and the cluster headaches got to totally get in the way of your ability to do the job.
And I thought to myself, I'm like, I'll push through. We'll figure it out.
Right. Yeah. We're
No,
all tough. No, it's
yeah,
physical.
yeah,
It's nothing you get. Yeah. Right. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, here I am now. I think I spent, I don't know, months, almost a year on my parents' basement floor, just, depressed, not sure what I'm going to do. I'm like, man, my whole future's ahead of me.
Right.
I was hoping to climb the corporate ladder, make six figures at a fairly early age. And here I am doing nothing, not sure if
Right.
anyone's ever going to hire me again. And so, long story short, but basically a friend threw me a bone. He was working at a pool shop. They did custom pools.
Like
And
pools that you swim in, like diving
yeah,
in. Yeah. Got it.
yeah, custom pools. And he said, hey, you're good with computers. Why don't you come in and help us out a little bit? And
Okay.
we'll pay you for a day or two. And I was like, done.
What?
Anything to make some cash, right? Like
Right.
I needed something. Here I
Yeah.
am. I think I was 24 at the time, and so
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I felt like I'm not contributing to society in any way right
Right. Yeah, you
now.
get depressed and stuff. Life has a way of just like smacking you over the head with a 2x4, like when you least expect it. I mean, you're just driving along, going to see your girlfriend, whatever, and bam. And then and your life shifts. And that's just the way, some people are resilient and they bounce back. And sometimes it takes a while. Some people don't. So, yeah. So you found yourself at 24. You're usually pretty positive, right? You got the whole world coming. Everything's going to be great until something like that happens. You're like, what the? Like, that's not supposed to happen, right? And I'm sure you
Totally.
had a lot of that doubt. Yeah.
No, and that's what I thought. I'm that kind of guy, right? Where I'm like, cup half full. The world's my oyster. And so it was a big reality check, and one that I'm going to be honest, I didn't have the skills or the tools to kind of prepare myself
You're
for.
only 24. No life experience. You just got your life experience, like real quick.
Listen, no
Yeah.
life experience. Let's go with the first one. None.
Right.
None.
Yeah, none. Exactly. So that was nice. So but your friend was really just saying, hey, come on in, to get you off of the couch and doing something, right? It wasn't like, hey, you want to join us and be a tech guy.
No. It was just that, they had a bit of a thing. He said, maybe it'll take you 2 days. I said, great. So I went in, met the owner. We started talking for a little bit. And by the end of that meeting, I walked out of there with a marketing client. And full disclosure, I didn't go to school for marketing. I actually went to school to be a pastor.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, didn't know anything about marketing, but we just started talking, and I pointed out some things, and he said, yeah, you know what, you should take it over. And I said, great. And so I used that money to fund my education and started telling other people that I had a marketing client. Next thing you know, I had a marketing business. And
Got it.
and that's how I fell into my first round of entrepreneurship.
Got it. So that's what they brought you on. They said, listen, we need help marketing the business. You're obviously in sales already if you're a pastor. So, right. That's probably the hardest sell, getting people to follow religion these days. And then they said, come on and do your marketing. You were like, okay. You didn't say like, I don't know anything about marketing. It's not what I do.
Listen, I always try and be,
right.
I try and be full disclosure. I was like, hey, this is what I notice, because he started a conversation. He said, hey, look, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
You seem like a smart guy. Any thoughts on that? And I said, look, at the end of the day, this doesn't seem like it's adding it up. This doesn't seem like it's adding up. I've got a friend who does this and who's done this before. He's good at this. And he said, well, if I were going to pay you, how much would you charge? And I was like, well, I didn't go to school for it.
Right. I have no skills whatsoever. So
no, I never wanted to come back to me. Right. Even now, I always just want that full disclosure, transparency where I'm like, I never want someone to be misled or think otherwise.
Right.
And so,
no, of course not. Because then you end up losing the client. Doesn't help you anyway. So you might as well just, So
no way to do business, no way to do life.
Convincing him to say no to you, and he won't do it.
That's Mitch. That's my whole life. It's convincing people to say no and them saying yes. That's my whole life.
But that's good, right? I mean, if you've gotten past, there's going to be no objections. If you've basically said, "Listen, do not hire me. I can't do this," and they're like, "Well, no, Matt, we want you to do this." They're not going to come back later on and change their mind. They're going to look like a bunch of idiots. So it's like a puppy dog close. It's kind of like, here, I'm great, but you can't have me. I'm sorry, I'm not right for this job. No, you are right. I think it's a sales.
It works for me. Listen, when we get into what I'm doing now, I'm telling it's followed me full circle, so it works.
Okay, so but still, now we're back. You're 24 years old. You had this horrific accident. You lost your job, or couldn't. I guess I don't know if they fired you or you had to quit. Whatever it was, I don't know how Canada works, but here you get unemployment if you're fired. You don't if you're quit. There is disability sometimes, insurance. I don't know, whatever you had. And then your friend said, hey, come do marketing for us because you're a pastor. Like that all makes sense.
Yeah, it all adds up. 1 + 1 is 3 for sure.
Right. And you were selling scanners, by the way, which really follows with your education. So.
and so I started doing this, and I again, I feel like there's a theme here of my naivete, but I basically, and I still feel this way. If I can get in a room with someone, I'm gonna land the client. I've always felt that way.
Well, that's your sales, right? And your sales background.
Sure. Yeah, I'm confident in myself, but going into business, I had no idea that sales is just part of the equation. And so for those first 3 years, here I am landing clients, going in, meeting people, making lots of connections. And as quickly as I'd bring them in, I'd lose them.
Yeah. Because that's probably the most important part of the equation, right? Business development, sales, which everybody shies away from, or they build the business. They're like, nobody's coming in. But it is a problem. You don't want to say, well, that's a problem I can deal with if I had a lot of business. It's not always that easy because you got to do the job or you lose the client. So, all right. So take me through that. So why did you start losing clients?
Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, I was still battling the same things I had in the corporate world. And so, just because I was the boss, working 9 to 5 still wasn't going to work. And at the end of the day, I'm an A-type. I'm a big vision guy. Right. So I'm like, yeah, let's get in the room, plenty of ideas. And that's great when there's other people in the room. When you're the only guy in the room,
right.
who's there to execute, right?
Me, myself, and I, all three. Yeah. And you're still dealing with your physical issues, right? So you're battling through that and it makes it hard, right?
Totally. I got real good at running staff meetings with my salt and pepper shakers. That's basically how it played out.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, that went on for 3 years. The business was a wreck for 3 years where I was barely making it. Things were just not going well. And I basically
delivering. You weren't able to deliver to the client. Is that what it was?
Yeah. And honestly, my physical pain would take me out. So, you could go no communication for a few weeks and then right. And listen, people love dealing with me, but at the end of the day, it's a business, right?
Yeah. They got to keep in business to keep doing stuff. If I have an assistant, I have a digital marketing assistant who does all my marketing. She disappears for a couple of days. My whole system breaks down. Things got to keep going.
Totally. And so I basically came to this place where I'm like, something has to change. And so, I had this idea where I was like, okay, what am I good at? I'm great with people. I am not good at the rest of this. So how can I start to work myself out of a job for the rest of this? Yeah. And so I started to build systems and structures Some worked, some didn't. It became a
Right.
science experiment, which really appealed to the logical side of me. And I started to execute what I now call this 3-step framework that
Hmm.
slowly worked me out of a job and took me from the horrific first 3 years to bringing 7 people on and eventually having a successful exit from the business.
Yeah, I think that intuitively you seem to do things in the right order. And I talk to a lot of people, they don't do that. What they would normally do is, if they even got past the fact that they shouldn't be doing everything themselves, right? You were kind of forced to do that because of your physical things, you're dealing with all this stuff. They just go and hire somebody. They throw them at the problem and say, here, can you do this? Can you do that? They don't put systems in place. They don't create procedures and processes. If you do that first, and then you know who to plug in where and who you're looking for. People do it the other way around. And then they have all these people. They got 7 people working for them now. They're not sure who knows what. And there's all kinds of things they're not communicating. And then they got to fix it. They got to hire a consultant like you to fix everything they already set up. So it seems to me like whether by choice or by force, you kind of had to do it in the right order. Is that right? Is that weird what I'm saying? Or
Totally. But it's funny that you bring that up, because oftentimes when I present building out these systems and these structures, I often get resistance from people that say, well, I'm already drowning in work.
right.
And I like to push back and just say, you're right. You're already drowning in work. So what's a little bit more going to do, right?
Right.
To get you out. You're already drowning.
Yeah.
You're already
And if they
working
had these
in the
systems, they
business.
wouldn't be drowning in work, right? Because they're working in the business. They're basically an employee of a business they also happen to own. Like there's no, right? So you might as well, it doesn't matter whether you own it or not. You're killing yourself. You're basically getting no profit out of the business because you're giving back all your labor in return for the money you're getting out of the business. You're basically employed by someone else that just happens to have the same name as you. So I think a lot of people fall into that trap. You're right. They do. And then their answer is, well, Matt, I mean, come on, I'm drowning in work already. I can't put in these processes. Well, then, okay, then you're going to struggle all your life.
Listen, there's a question I ask. It's the second question I ask anyone who ever wants to work with me now. And it's this idea that I say, Mitch, heaven forbid, let's take you. Something knocked you out for 30 days. 30 days,
Yeah.
no contact, can't do anything, no effort. When you came back in 30 days, how would the rest of your team feel? What would you come back to as a
Would
business?
business even be operating?
And almost always, I know we're a good fit if the person looks at me and they go, yeah, I wouldn't come back to much. And I say, well,
Right.
then you don't have a business, you have a job. Because when you
Yeah.
don't show up to your job, you don't get paid.
Right. No, absolutely. Look, I'm
But
a professional. I have a job pretty much. I don't have a staff. I used to. I don't really want them anymore. And I can't just like say here. I mean, I could find some people, but I don't have it right now to do backup work. If I was out for 30 days, I'd have to do work from bed somehow. In my marketing would keep going because I got that covered. But, the work itself, kind of some of it has to be done by the professional. So
Yeah.
it sucks. It sucks. There's no good answer. But you're right. Businesses, I always say that, like, even if you have somebody you rely on who really runs your business for you, can you send them on a vacation for a month? Like, tell them, listen, we're going to give you a month off. You can do whatever you want. We're still going to pay you. Don't tell us anything and see if you can manage.
It's a great test.
Right? Better know it than when it really happens and there's a fire drill going on. Some people don't. Yeah, they find out that this person does too much. And
there we go. This sounds like a good business idea for you and I. We're gonna go into businesses and send operations people on vacation for a month.
Right,
That's
exactly.
what we're gonna do.
Yeah, see if the business fails. We'll do like a whole study. Absolutely. All right. So, but I'm curious about this, Matt. So you come into your friend's business, right? You don't know anything about marketing. Oh, you maybe a little bit because you're a sales guy, right? You know something about business development. What did it look like? He said come in for a couple of days. So what did those 2 days of knowing nothing, trying to figure this shit out? What did that look like? What did you do?
Because remember, I just came in to do some computer stuff, right?
Which was what? What was computer stuff?
Just some IT, setting up some software.
Okay. It wasn't
optimize the computers, not marketing at all.
Okay. I misunderstood that. Okay.
Yeah. So just that, and the fact that when the owner came by just to thank me, he started commenting on their marketing, and that led to a conversation that allowed me to walk out of there with my first marketing client.
Got it. And what did they need you to do? Since we know you have no skills in that area, or you think you don't, you obviously do.
Great question.
What were you going to do?
The beautiful thing about that is they had no idea. They just knew that they needed marketing. And so I started and I said, well, okay, I'm going to take this money. I think it was $2,000 a month they were going to pay me. I was like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go invest in some courses and I'm going to go teach myself.
Right.
And so I used those things to basically teach myself. And I said, okay, well, let's start with the website, right? This website is terrible. It's
Right.
awful. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at this and say that this is from the 1970s and we're in 2012
Which
or
would be a little
2013.
hard since the internet probably started in 1992. But yeah.
It looked like a drawing. It looked like a drawing.
Really?
Made in Microsoft Paint. I'm not
Yeah,
kidding.
it's Tom. Really, that's funny. That
It
might be
was
from the
terrible.
70s. That's funny. Yeah.
Um, and so I started there. Started with the website, right? And then I started to teach myself about SEO and getting found on Google because hey, we
Right.
have a website,
Right.
right? But if nobody can find the website, what good is this?
Right.
And
And this
and
was
then
10, 12 years ago, right? So the world was a
yeah,
different place then in terms of Google ads. And I don't think there was as much social media. There was some new
nope,
other web probably social media that's not even around anymore. Yeah.
yeah. And so I used that and I used these skills to leverage now my knowledge bank and my time into getting other clients and then to eventually expanding my knowledge.
Right.
And until I started to build this business where I was like, okay, I'm starting to really recognize that I'm great at sales and I'm great at the consulting. I'm really good at coming in and helping people with the strategy, but building the websites, man, that's taking way too much of my time.
Right. Of course. That's not a good use of your time.
No, right? And
Right.
so I started to go through this 3-step framework that started to free me up. And so even if it was freeing up 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, well, I would go and I would, start to bring someone in part-time and move them to full-time, or I would hire someone overseas or
Right.
whatever. And I just kept repeating that cycle because it became really addictive for me where I was like, oh wait, this is working. So let's see how far we can take this. Right.
Yeah. And you're kind of bootstrapping, right? You're not investing too much money. You're putting money into yourself. I think a lot of people can take a lot from that in that, if you see an opportunity, you fall into something because somebody asks you to do this for them. And you're like, hey, I can probably make some money doing this and make a business or part of a business out of it or whatever. And then you did the right thing. You educated yourself. You started learning about it and you built it in pieces slowly as you go because you were kind of testing along the way, like, well, that worked. Maybe let's see how far we can make that work. And then maybe it didn't all the time, right? I would assume not everything just developed properly. You had to make changes along
Totally.
the way, right?
I try and equate it to working out. If you want to lose weight or you want to build muscle, you probably try one or two things. You're probably going to go through
Right.
plateaus where you're like, I don't see any results. But at the end of the day, it's tweaking, and then you find something, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to
New
go all in on
exercises
this.
and this. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. And so I just try and treat business and the optimization process in general as we're just experimenting. Some things work, some
Right.
things don't, but let's
Testing.
just keep reassessing.
Right.
And
Like marketing. You should do testing. Nobody does it. Right. You know what I
totally.
love? I know we're going to get into this probably more in the second half, but I love the 3-step process. Like I have people on, if you just follow my 12-step process, I'm like, 12 steps. That's a lot. Those are like drug addicts have 12 steps. Like that's a lot. Even 5, I think maybe people can stomach. Right. But like 3 makes it easy. I do that with business planning. Right. I have boiled down a business plan because people get overwhelmed with that stuff. They think it should have charts and graphs and all kinds of crazy things to 4 parts, not 10 parts, not 12 sections, which you can get, off a score or any of these other templates, probably 10 to 12, sections of a really well-written, expanded business plan. But you got to start somewhere. So, I will talk about it later, but 4 parts is stomachable, digestible, and then you move on. Because I think you drop too much crap on top of people and they just get paralyzed. They don't get
Totally.
it. Yeah.
Oh, keep it simple. Listen, the
Right.
amount of business owners I work with now who will come to me when we first start working, I'll say, hey, so what's it look like to invest in yourself? What have you done
Right.
previously? And
Right.
people say, oh, well, I bought these 3 or 4 courses. And I'm like, 3 or 4 courses? Some
Right.
of these are 75, 10 grand. I'm like, and you're still struggling with the same
Right.
thing.
Well,
Like,
some of them may be in plastic. They didn't, really, or they did it and they took notes and they didn't follow through. They didn't implement. They didn't, that's the difference between taking a course and working with a coach, right? Because somebody who's a coach or consultant or whatever that you want to call yourself these days, right, is really the person that holds you accountable and implements. And hopefully they have good tools and they teach you just like a course. But when the course is over, you're back to the person that wasn't implementing before.
yeah,
Right? You see
listen,
that regularly, that people invest in these courses and they don't do anything afterward.
all the time. And
Yeah.
just for the record, when we get into the story, I hated the idea of being called a coach, and even
Right.
a little bit less, but also consultant, because I'm like, they're a dime a dozen. God knows what anyone does, right? Like, are they effective?
Right. I know. Yeah, exactly.
But I did really like that thought, because at the end of the day, you can go soak up all the knowledge in the world, but what most people need is accountability. Most people actually need that advisor to just come out and say, "Hey, here are the pros and cons. It's not my job to make a decision for you. I'm
Right.
not one of these guys that's going to come in and say, 'Hey, I'm an expert.' I'm not. You're the expert. That's why you're in this field. It's my job to make sure that you're making a holistic, well-rounded decision, and that your strategy encompasses all these things. And I can help you guide you along, make sure that we're on the path, and anything of that sort." So
Right.
yeah, it's
Work
interesting.
the plan and then keep them on track. And yeah. And you're right. I think the word coach is kind of it's like financial advisor. Like everybody and their grandmother's a financial advisor these days. So the guys in that business, I know they struggle with what the hell do they call themselves? Financial planner, financial advisor, whatever. I think it's the same thing in the coaching business, because anybody, I mean, I've met all kinds of people. I met life coaches. I met retirement coaches. I've met all kinds of coaches. I don't know what they do, but I hope they have tools like you do, because if you don't have tools and stuff to work with the client, then you're really just a therapist. I mean, you might as well just listen to them talk, right? So that doesn't really do anything. It's got to be actionable.
Yeah,
Every time you talk to somebody, they got to walk away with something they got to do for the next time that you talk to them. Now, do you coach? I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but do you work with people like you find on a long-term basis, or you can always consider it like, look, 6 to 12 months, if these people work with me, I think they'll pretty much be really good, and then we just go on maintenance type of thing. How do you approach that?
yeah, I've got a sly master plan, I like to call it, where I tell people, I said, look, the way it works is it's either bi-weekly, weekly, or twice a week, depending on their needs,
Okay.
and give it 6 months. And within 6 months, my hope is that not only will I have paid for myself, but you will have fallen in love with the process, so that we can have a long-term relationship.
Right.
I've been doing this iteration of the business now for about just over a year and a half, and every single one of my clients that started with me, they're still with me, because the hope is there's always new streams of revenue, there's
Right.
always new people to develop, and
Projects, right.
so yeah, and so my goal is not a short-term fix, but it's important to me that I justify my cost and their investment early on. Otherwise, I'm just one of these people that's pitching a quick fix and hoping to
Right.
take people's money.
So you want them like 6 months or so to at least be on track, following the things. We fixed everything. We're going forward, and now we can do business development and really focus on moving up to the next level.
Absolutely. That's exactly how I frame it.
All right. So then let's do this. Let's take a break, a few minutes for commercials, and then we'll come back and we can start talking about your process and things you see people do wrong. We did talk about some of them already. Things you see they're doing right. How do we, because I'm as a small business owner, small business attorney, I'm in the same world that you are, trying to make people do things a little bit better, follow the rules a little bit more, and improve their chances of success. So we'll take a break, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about that. Does it all make sense?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. All right, Matt, we are back. So do you ever do things like, I don't want to take business away from Tab, they're a sponsor of mine, but do you ever do things, group stuff where, you know, people learn from each other, sounding boards and stuff? Because Tab's, I think, very industry specific. Like they'll put, you know, a bunch of guys in the trades together, or, you know, different, and it's group therapy. They get a lot of results. But have you ever done that, or your stuff's all one-on-one?
No. So I haven't done that in that vein yet, but I have done group in terms of, you know, within the company.
Mm-hmm.
I do find there's merit in it. I do like to start with the one-on-one before going into the group.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something we do. For example, you know, one of my main clients that I started off with, I was just up there for the second time in a year. We went up and did like a strategy session, 3 or 4 days. And it was cool because we went from, you know, just one-on-one to then we involved all the owners. And then I actually, you know, said for a day, let's bring in the management team.
Yeah.
And so they brought the managers in, and it was very cool to see the managers' eyes as they got brought into the business. And the owners actually thanked me when I left because they said the buy-in that they received from the management team,
right? That's the word.
That they had never really involved them in these planning sessions, strategy sessions previously, and now they felt like there was just much more synergy between both parties. And so I think there's a lot of merit to that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing group like amongst different businesses, they got to be able to give and take. So they're kind of going to be in a different level. They might be like, you fixed them already, and then, you know, that type of stuff. But yeah, no, I think that's one of the problems with businesses, right? They end up being siloed, and the people aren't really buying into and, you know, gaining ownership in the company emotionally, and they want to feel validated and they want to feel like they're part of the whole thing. And I think, yeah, that's a smart move to bring in management. And then you realize, I didn't realize we were so disconnected. Sometimes you're just running around as an owner, doing what you're doing, living in the clouds. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. So why don't we talk about the ways you work with people, the kind of things, what your process is. You know, I don't want you to give away the farm, but you know what I mean. You know, things you see people do right, things you see people do wrong, things that are trends you see, because I see them too. I get guys come on the show who are business owners. You can immediately tell whether these are the kind of guys that'll be successful in any business. I use guys loosely, guys and girls, or they're just in a business that they know and they're successful now. And if they go to a new industry, they're going to wet the bed, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. And so let me make the distinction really early on. So I call myself a business coach and strategic consultant because I'm a bit of a hybrid. So on the business coaching side, I love working with the owners, the entrepreneurs, the high performers. And it's a lot of strategy. It's a lot of mindset stuff.
Right.
You know, for example, you know, you talk about everybody's overwhelmed. Everybody's got their things. And so for me, it's helping them find that gear where I say, okay, so why do you feel overwhelmed? Right. It could be something as simple as the idea that, you know, most business owners I talk to don't have boundaries, right? A lot of them are owner operators. They don't have boundaries. I'll give you a great example. I started working with a client who had said, you know, my goal is to take the business to $3 million. And I was like, hey, cool. That may be your goal. But for the purpose of this exercise, it's not a great goal. And they were a little offended at the moment. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, look, you know, the problems you have right now at, you know, just under $1 million, they're not going to go away at 3 million. They might get worse.
Right.
So instead of giving me a revenue-based goal, why don't you tell me as the owner operator what your goal is? What does success look like for you?
Right.
And, you know, they just kind of stopped. They stewed on it. We came back to another session. They said, success for me looks like shutting off at 5 o'clock and spending more time with my family. And I said, great. So what that means is we need to build a business that has separation for you, because at $3 million, the demand on your personal life could be even more. We can get to $3 million, but we can do it in a way where the operations managers and the management team feels empowered to not just do tasks, but to have responsibility and decision making. Yeah. And we've gone down that journey.
Yeah. And, you know, the revenue is really not a goal. It's a result of, you know, having a business that's firing on all cylinders and everybody's working together and and you enjoy your work more and you can get home and put it down and spend time, because sometimes people are so overwhelmed with their work, even though they go home, they're not really home. Right. I think that's one of the problems in today's society is we take everything with us now. Our phones, our laptops, we're virtual, we're on Zoom, we're jumping in a meeting at 7:30 at night after dinner from the kids. And, and we're not probably sleeping too well either as a result of it. So, yeah, I think that all that stuff like quality of life and the way you run your business should be a goal. The money will follow if you're doing all the things right,
Look, if you're a small or medium business, whether you like it or not, as the entrepreneur goes, so does the business. That's reality,
Yeah.
right? And so at the end of the day, and I know you know this, but if we're going to talk culture or any leadership development, culture isn't what you want it to be, it's who you are. And so if your life looks a certain way,
It's going to carry right over.
right? And so it's important on the coaching side that I address those things. On the consulting side, that's where we really get into systems, structures, right? Like, I'm working with a client right now where the business is so good at getting people to do things, but they have high turnover. And one of the things that I really, really address is I said, not to be offensive because I'm offensive all the time, but I said, look, you guys are really good at handing out tasks, but a monkey could follow a checklist.
Right.
They really could.
Right.
How good are you at handing off responsibility? How good
Right.
are you at empowering these people to make decisions?
So they want to stay.
Right. And so they feel empowered so they can ask questions, because at the end of the day, if you hand off tasks, you're actually going to create more work for yourself, because those people will come back with a plethora of questions because no one modeled it to them. No one actually mentored them through the process.
Right. They have no ownership of the process.
Yeah. And so I say that to make that distinction because, some of my clients fall on the coaching side, some of them fall on the consulting. And that twice a week I mentioned is when I come in and I say, look, you need both. So I'll work with one person, often the owner on the coaching side. Let me work with your management team. And let's fix that disconnect so that things start to run smoothly so that you can hit the result that you want to hit.
Yeah. And, culture and process are interdependent. So if you have bad processes, it's going to affect your culture. And if you have bad culture and, you're overwhelmed, it's going to affect how the business runs and how happy people are. And, because you're short with people or you're, distant or you're difficult to deal with, or you're not clear with how you communicate. And then that's why they leave. I mean, that's right. I think especially the millennials nowadays, which are probably more like your contemporaries than mine. Like I don't know if this is true, but I think in their mind, they think that the companies need them more than they need the companies. Now, that may not be true. I just hear that all the time. Well, I'm not going to work there. If I got to go in 5 days a week, I'm going to get another job. Like, okay. And maybe they find it, maybe they don't. But I see that consistently. So culture, it seems to be very important. I know some recruiters that are working with their employer clients, branding and marketing the culture of the business to employees and prospective employees on top of just the branding that they do for customers, because life's changed and that's important to people, right? They want to know that if they got to go in the office 2-3 days a week, they can work from home, that they have a good culture to be a part of. And it's a selling point, I think. And
Well, listen, I feel like you and I could get into a 3-hour conversation on the merits and the perils of that. But, whether for better or for worse, that's reality.
Yeah.
And this is the reality that we're navigating. And so at the end of the day, we can either decide, oh, those are just buzzwords and I'm going to ignore them, or say, hey, well, if culture is important to the culture, then we need to make sure that that's present if we want to attract top talent or even just talent that wants to stick around.
Right. Because there's a lot. That's an expensive way to run a business, because if you're losing people, you have high turnover, you got to retrain them all the time, and you're training people and then they leave and they got to start again. And hopefully you start to put some processes in. It gets a little bit easier, but it's still not cost effective, to do that. It's just not.
I mentioned earlier, one of the things I like to do right off the bat, I like to call them quick wins, but I want to show that really a sign of good faith that, hey, your investment was worth it. And so one of the easiest ways I can do is on the training side, I start to add up, and I do this in front of them. Everything starts with a workflow for me. Okay. And so I will draw out, and people all the time look at me, they'll say, I'm not a visual person. I'm like, just shut up and stick with it. Okay. And
you are. So yeah.
Yeah. So we'll draw it out and we'll go from, let's say it's hiring, from the moment that someone decides we need to hire to the person fully onboarded, we'll draw it out. And it's amazing because when I draw it out, all the time people will say, "Oh, you forgot something," or "Oh, we forgot something," or "Let's add something," that they couldn't see on the Microsoft Word document, or that they failed to remember. And from that workflow, now I start to say, okay, well, of these things, the 3-step framework I said earlier, which of these can let's add up the total amount of hours. Let's say, to onboard an employee, it's expensive. Let's say it's 107 hours.
Okay.
Which of these tasks can we automate? Can we automate the document signing? Can we document can we automate some of the videos and the early onboarding? Okay, great. We just cut down to 95 hours. We saved 12
Right.
hours.
Because that's what, 2.5 weeks of
Right?
on time. Right.
Cut it down to 95 hours. Now, which of these are redundant, or which of these can we do in a better way? Okay, we figure a few things, we're down to 85 hours. And then finally, which of these can we delegate to people? Because, if you're the operations guy and you're getting paid, I don't know, $50 an hour, can I bring in people that make less to do certain components of the training and leave the most important part with you? Well, at the end of the day, going through this 3-step framework on that hiring process, Mitch, I'm down to 60 hours from 107. We saved
Right.
47 hours of
Almost
labor.
1 week. Right.
What can we do with 47 hours of labor in terms of cost and
Right.
productivity?
Right.
Right. So, and so when we say, high turnover and replacing employees is expensive, it's not just expensive to go through the search. It's expensive on the training. It's expensive on
Yeah.
the organization. So
Sure. Big time. Especially if you got to spend 2.5 weeks onboarding each person, and then you got to start over. You never get off the ground. I think you mentioned leadership before too, on top of processes, but I think a lot of small business owners don't realize how important leadership is. Like, they think of leadership as like, we're a J&J and the team leaders and, big corporations and things like that. And they don't realize that you have to send the right message. You have to be a leader to get people to buy into what your vision is and gain ownership in what they're doing. And a lot of times, I don't know if do you see that a lot of people at the top take that for granted, that everything's just going fine. I don't need to be a leader, so to speak.
all of the time, if you want to go down the leadership vein, I get that.
Yeah.
I get a lot of people. I encounter a lot of people who are like, yeah, I read that John Maxwell book. I'm like, congratulations, you're still not a leader.
Right.
Right. Like there's a ton of that. And it's this idea, I recently had this conversation with someone where they said, why should I invest as the business owner in that? And I had to basically create the framework that I'm like, whether you realize it or not, your business is an asset. It has a set value. It's a house, right? And we can choose when we want to make additions to the house, renovations to the house. So if you view your business as an asset, what I'm asking you to do, or encouraging you to do, is if you're willing to focus on people development, because at the end of the day, it's people that actually build business.
Right.
If you're willing to focus on the people development and the culture and actually start to demonstrate that for yourself, whether that's going to a seminar, start to practice new things, whatever, start taking people out for lunches,
Right.
start improving employee morale, the value of your asset will inevitably go up because you're going to
Sure.
start to get the results you want. And when I lay that out because it sounds nice, but when I lay it out from a financial perspective for people and they can see the tangible benefit, it's actually amazing to see how much buy-in I actually get, because people start to see, oh, wait, as the owner or the entrepreneur or the high-performing leader, I actually can impact the value of this organization beyond just driving more sales or cutting more costs. I can actually build more skills into people. I can help them upskill. I can,
Right.
one of the most basic things, Mitch, that I have one of my clients doing right now is I said, you need a leadership pipeline in your business. You've got 3 locations, 55 employees. Stop hiring externally, start hiring internally. And they go, well, Matt, we just don't have those people. I'm like, how do you know?
Right.
How do you know?
Yeah.
And so they sent out a Google form survey. They got 7 or 8 people that said, yeah, we'd love to do more in this company. And I said, go to town with those 7 or 8 people for the next 6 months. Take them out to lunches, take them out for coffees.
Right.
Is there an investment? Sure. It's minimal, time-wise and whatever. By the end of it, they had 3 or 4 people. This was over the last year and a half. They had 3 or 4 people indicate or really build relationship, really lean in. And 3 of those 4 became managers at the company now.
Nice.
All because they started a leadership pipeline. This buzzword that seems like a real good idea, but in practicality, actually, they had the people. They had great ideas. They just needed to actually draw up a strategy that was going to take advantage and build into people. So,
Right. And acknowledge them. Yeah. I think people, I see that common with business owners. They don't value their people, or they just assume, oh, well, they're not capable of handling that, I mean, I've done that too. And then when you give them the opportunity, I think in most cases, people surprise you, in most cases, not always, but I think in most cases, you give them more responsibility, you give them more freedom, you give them some opportunities to do some things and be creative, right? That's really what drives people, makes them feel good about work. They surprise you. They come back. When I had hired my VA, that was one of the things I wanted to do this year, to take all the marketing off of my plate, posting and this and that. She's doing it, obviously. I'm sure you don't find this surprising. She's doing a better job than I do in terms of the editing the podcast and getting social media together and putting stuff out. And, I mean, which shouldn't be surprising to anybody, but she's focusing on it and I'm not. It's not something I do. I should be doing legal work. And obviously she can't interview you. I'm going to do that. But everything else, she's pretty much taken off my plate in the course of a month or something like that. So,
well, you're the pretty face. She can't take that away from you. So
I'm a poster child for the business. So exactly.
No, but honestly, it's so true. At the end of the day, look, when you take a shot, I routinely encourage people to take a shot on the people in their business. You're either going to have a win or you're going to get clarity, right? You're
the wrong person, right?
Right. And
we got to know that.
And that gamble, all it's going to cost you is time. If I gamble on an external hire, or if I go spend money on an agency or a service, that's going to cost me money.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's this idea that, especially in leadership and in business, I'm either going to pay now or I'm going to pay more later. If I don't fix that leak now or be proactive, it's only going to get more expensive.
Absolutely.
So I would rather put in the resources, the time, and the energy now to be proactive and build some of those things up. Maybe I won't see the result that I want right away, but I know that there's a bill coming due and it's only going to get pricier.
Yep. Look, the same thing when I'm outside general counsel to, I consider shared counsel to companies where I know what they have and I make sure everything's in order. Everything runs smoothly. When they come to me later, when they've been sued or they got a contract dispute or they're trying to fix it, not only does it cost them more, sometimes it's not even correctable. So, it's too big of a risk to do that. Now, you had alluded to your 3-step process. So what are the 3 steps? We probably covered them without you pointing them out, but can we go through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's so basic, but I think anyone can do it. And It's a great start. And it's the idea that everything can either be automated, eliminated, or delegated. And I like to start in that process. And so what do I mean by that? Automation. Look, if you think about your energy and your output as 100%, right? I know some people are, pushing over that, but 100%. If I can find 10% of my calendar to automate, then I just freed up 10%. And when I'm talking automation, look, there are so many, you don't have to spend money. There are so many great free tools out there.
Yep.
There are, with the advent of AI, I was just teaching a business the other day where I'm like, AI will not do your work for you to the level you want it to, but it can do a great job of making things much more focused,
right?
Going through data, filtering things so that you can make better decisions.
Yeah.
And so if I can automate 10%, Mitch, man, I just got back 10% of my time. If I can eliminate 10% of the things I'm doing, right? Maybe that's because there's redundancies. Maybe I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, that there's someone on my team, right? Right? It's amazing. I'll go into companies and I will actually find so much overlap between people because there's not clear job descriptions, there's not clear parameters, responsibilities. 10% automation, 10% elimination, and then delegation. Now, everybody wants to go to delegation first. Everybody's like, well, let's just get things off my plate. But when I start with automation and elimination, what I'm actually doing is I'm saving the business money because these are low cost options that increase effectiveness, they increase our efficiency. So now when I get to delegation, I'm in the spot where, man, if I could delegate 20% of things, I've just freed up 10, and 20, 40% of my time. Now that 40%, I'm not going to sit there and twiddle my thumbs because, I've had that where I've done that 40%.
Yeah.
I sit there and they're like, oh, great. Well, now I can take time off. I'm like, I mean, you could, but that 40%, what you can do is you can restart the cycle. What are the things that only you can be doing? Go generate revenue.
Right.
And then 3 months from now, let's do another audit because we're humans. We're always going to go back to our habits.
Right. Exactly.
3 months, 6 months from now, I start to look and I'm like, hey, what are you doing that needs to be automated? What are you doing that's redundant that needs to be eliminated? What can
Right.
you delegate? And it's this consistency that I'm seeing big wins for my clients in, of just me constantly coming in and saying, hey, this is how we're going to do it. Quick story for you that
Sure.
I think will be helpful. So
Okay,
one
great.
of the biggest things I do early on is we do a calendar audit and
Right.
a financial audit. And so my
Right.
calendar audit, I come in and I say, Mitch, you're my guinea pig. Okay. I'll come in and I'll say, Mitch, show me your calendar. Show me how you spend your time.
Right.
So he came in. It's actually a law firm. That's a client of mine,
Okay,
and
perfect.
they said, hey, like these are our values. These are really really important to us. And I was like, great, let's go through them. Right, let's just make sure that we're aligned. Strategy's making sense. And generosity was a huge one for them. It's like
Okay.
amazing, great. Show me your calendar. So went through the yearly calendar, went through some of the people. Great. Show me your bank account. Did a financial audit, went through the bank accounts. At the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year, they had given 0.5 or 0.6% of their revenue away to charity. And I
Okay.
think they had done 1 2-hour event over the course of a year. And I looked at everybody at the end of it, at the recap, I looked everybody square in the face and said, hey, it's not my decision to make. But do you think that 0.6% of your revenue in 1 2-hour meeting is generosity for you? Does that
Right.
fit with your values? And everyone just went, and I was like, hey, it's not to shame anybody, but it's
Oh,
to give us this this realistic picture, right? Are the things we're doing aligned with the things that we're saying, right?
right.
And so again, that's why I like encouraging people to do this audit, the automation, elimination, and delegation, because when you're doing this regularly, you're
Uh-huh.
constantly, am I realigned to who we say we are? Am I
Right.
realigned to our strategy? So
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, I find I talk to a lot of, because as a now solo attorney during the pandemic, I went out on my own, do my own thing. I automate a lot of stuff, and I teach other attorneys how to do that. A lot of it's marketing based. So I meet you, you jump on my calendar. My calendar's very managed because I use an online calendar. So they're all like, if I send you a link, it can only allow you to make appointments at certain times, depending on who you are and what you're doing. Then it takes your email. This is free, I think. Adds it to my marketing list. The marketing list sends out emails to you. You hear about the podcast. You learn about the practice, all those types of stuff. And I don't have to do anything. Like I don't. Right. I used to come back from events with piles of cards and I'm like, what the hell do I do with these now? So I have to put them on a marketing list, and you got to think about all that stuff. So yeah, you can automate a lot of things in your practice that are, like you said, free tools that make sense to just do that. But I think that's one of the problems is a lot of people, there's like, oh, it's just easier if I do it myself. Well, that might be right now that's true, but it's not true overall, because you just, it's like you're punishing yourself.
yeah, listen, I hear that all the time, and I love just using the illustration of margin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you get 100% of the result by putting in 100% of your time, great. That's generally what we're all doing. But you're right, Mitch. It's very possible that someone may not do as good of a job as you. But
But it's important, right?
if I can get someone to get 70% of the result and it
Right.
only costs you 20% of the output, from a business perspective, we just made 50%. What can we do with 50%? And if I can keep doing that across every position, every proceeds, guess what? Right? That's in business is made in the margins. And so, listen, and I understand for a lot of people it's an ego thing, but that's why I
Yeah,
love to play.
that's insecurity, right?
I want to place the numbers in front of people, right? So that way I'm not fighting them. I'm saying, hey, which would you pick? Would you pick 100% and zero margin, or would you pick 70% output, 50% margin? And they go, yeah, I'm choosing the 50% margin.
Yeah. I think that's also a little bit of a myth that people buy into, that they think, well, if I delegate, I can do a better job than the person I delegate to. But I think 9 times out of 10, that is not true. You're spread so thin. The person that is focusing on let's say you have somebody for social media marketing, right? Because you used to do posting for the business yourself because it was small, it was just you and you grew. This person will end up doing a better job, right? It's a myth that they're going to do 70% of your job. Like, it's an ego thing, right? Don't have that much faith in yourself that you think that it's possible for you to do a good job, the best job on everything. It's just not. And I think that's one of the myths that people bust when they start to let other people do it. And they're like, wow, that's better than, like, what do you think of that, Mitch? I think it's better than what I was doing, and now it's actually increasing things and moving up, the world. And so I think, people, they get caught up. It's an insecurity. Oh, well, I've done this and I don't know. They won't understand how to do it the right way. Well, maybe the right way you were doing it wasn't as good as it could be done. So I think it's just a myth. It's not, it's going to be 70%. If I'm going to have somebody do the legal work for me, is it going to be worse than I'm doing? Maybe. I doubt it. So, so yeah, I think people get caught up with that. It's just an excuse for them not to do anything.
Totally. And I think we've all been there. That's why I just like using the, laying it out for people, the financials and doing those, because it's real hard to dispute the numbers on the page, right? You can fight me and you can sit there and like, well, you don't, I hear it all the time. You don't know my business the way that I know my business. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah, right.
And I don't need to.
Matter, right? Doesn't matter. It's true. Because that's not the reason, right? It's better that you don't know their business. Because you might be jaded and cloudy thinking in terms of, oh, well, I know what he's saying. No, you're listening because you don't. That's what you want, an outsider.
Totally. Like, can you imagine sitting in a therapist's office during couples therapy and telling the therapist, you don't know this relationship like I know this relationship. Like that's probably not playing out well for you.
Right. Unless you're in a marriage that's a mess like ours is and getting divorced, you're not going to understand this. And that's ridiculous. That's the opposite way,
Totally.
Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough for coming on. If people want to learn more from you and interact with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, my website, consultingbyprime.com, consultingbyprime.com, or look me up on LinkedIn. I love to connect with people. Matthew Sanjari, Sanjari, Matthew Sanjari, Sanjari. Website or LinkedIn, love to connect with people.
Okay, and we'll put those links in the show notes so people can, at least people that are looking at it, will find it, and hopefully Google searches will find it too. So, Matt, so I can't thank you enough. Definitely stay in touch. And thanks for joining me today.
Mitch, thanks for having me, man. Felt like such an easy conversation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinacker and produced by Beinacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.